Stop overthinking and just do it. In a small monastery nestled among mist-covered mountains, lived a young monk named Haru. Since childhood, he had listened to Zen teachings about simple living, a clear mind, and present action. Yet, despite knowing many wise words about inner peace and mindfulness, Haru had a problem. He constantly got stuck in his head, trapped in indecision, paralyzed by fear and doubt. Stop overthinking and just do it. An old master had once told him while they swept the temple courtyard together one quiet afternoon. Simple, direct words, but to Haru they felt like a riddle. How could he stop thinking so much and simply act? That morning, the spring sun gently lit the blooming cherry trees, and the birdsong filled the air with a serene melody. In that moment, Haru chose to take a step into the unknown, putting into practice the principle of mindfulness in action, the Zen art of living without getting stuck in the mind or in fear of the future. With each step he took beyond the safety of the temple, he remembered the master's words like a calming mantra. Stop overthinking and just do it. He understood now that the path to wisdom was not just about understanding with the mind, but about living with the body and the heart, accepting the natural flow of life. Haru walked along a path lined with bamboo, its tall stalks whispering in the wind. Each movement became a meditation in itself, an invitation to free the mind from the clutter of thoughts. He remembered how the human mind tends to complicate the simple, getting tangled in doubts, in the endless what-ifs, and in the paralyzing fear of failure. But on the Zen path, the key lies in conscious action, in the absolute present. As he walked, another teaching from the master surfaced in his mind. Perfection isn't about foreseeing everything, but about accepting imperfection and moving with it. Those words became a lighthouse, steadying his restless heart. The mountain ahead was not just a physical challenge. It symbolized his fear of taking the first step. And in that moment, Haru understood. It was not about waiting for the perfect moment, because that ideal time might never come. True Zen wisdom is to take action now, without letting the mind complicate what is simple. Just do it. And so, with the quiet strength of someone who knows the path is made by walking, Haru moved forward, breathing deeply, absorbing the serenity of the forest, and leaving behind the mental noise that had held him back so many times before. Sunlight filtered gently through the leaves of the forest as Haru walked along the moss-covered path. Each step was a conscious act, a dance between body and mind striving to find stillness. His heart pounded, not just from physical effort, but from the inner battle he was fighting against his own thoughts. He thought of all the times he had stopped before starting, projects left unfinished, words he never dared to speak, paths avoided out of fear of failure or judgment. His head had always been his prison, a cage built from doubts, endless analysis, and worry. But today was different. He recalled the old master's words, echoing within him like a melody. Stop overthinking and just do it. Not just a simple phrase, but an invitation to release the invisible weight he carried in his mind. Haru realized that the root of his paralysis was not a lack of ability, but the mental overload that kept him from connecting with his essence and with the present moment. The mind, when overwhelmed by worry, becomes a tangled web that clouds the clear path of action. Just then, the breeze carried the fresh scent of wet earth and a whisper from the forest that seemed to say, "Now is your only refuge, the only moment where you can truly live and act." Breathing deeply, he chose to leave behind the doubt that had long bound him. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, the invisible permission his mind always sought, Haru chose to act. Because action, he thought, is the purest expression of life itself. The young monk continued his walk through the mountain. Each step was a small victory over the mind that tried to hold him back. Each moment a living lesson in Zen wisdom. He knew it wouldn't always be easy, and that his mind would try again to confuse him. But he had discovered something powerful. The simple act of moving forward, of doing, was already an act of freedom and growth. As Haru ascended the winding path, curving between stones and centuries-old trees, a quiet calm began to settle within him. It wasn't a calm born from stillness or the absence of thought, but from a deep acceptance of what is. A young man finally choosing to act without delay, without overcomplicating. Each step taught him that life doesn't wait for us to be ready. Action, with all its flaws and fears, is the bridge between desire and reality. He remembered the Zen teachings about non-doing and doing without attachment, that it's not about forcing, but about letting action arise from a place of stillness, without allowing the mind to become a barrier. As he climbed, a small stone tumbled off the path and landed beneath a bush. Haru bent down to move it and noticed delicate white flowers growing strong beneath it. In that quiet moment, he understood, like those flowers, life always finds a way to push through, even in difficult terrain. It only needs us not to suffocate it with doubt or fear. The master had also taught him to cultivate patience and trust the process. Time is neither enemy nor ally, he once said. It is simply the ground in which we plant our actions. And so the master added, there's no use tormenting yourself over what might go wrong, or what hasn't happened yet. Haru took a deep breath, and his mind began to clear, like the sky after a storm. He was no longer trapped in the what-ifs, but rooted in the action itself, immersed in the pure experience of the present. It didn't matter if the path was steep, or if the destination still lay far ahead. What mattered was that he had moved, that he had stopped overthinking and simply done. In that instant, he understood a simple and profound truth. Zen wisdom isn't found in accumulating knowledge, but in the courage to live the present with awareness, without letting the mind complicate what life offers with such grace. And so, step by step, Haru continued on his path, feeling that each moment was a fresh chance to practice the essence of Zen. Not to overthink, but simply to do. When Haru reached a clearing, he paused for a moment. Before him, a crystal-clear river wove its way between the stones, singing an ancient song that seemed to rise from the very heart of the earth. He sat at the riverbank, letting the sound of the flowing water quiet the final echoes of noise in his mind. He watched how the water flowed, effortlessly, without questioning its path, simply moving forward. In its flow, he saw a powerful metaphor. Life is constant movement, and like the river, we must keep going without getting caught in the whirlpools of doubt. Why do we complicate what is simple? Haru whispered softly to himself. The answer, though simple, opened a new door. The mind feeds on worry because it fears losing control. But in truth, control is an illusion, and true freedom begins when we let go and simply act. He remembered a phrase the master often repeated. Fearless action is the key that unlocks the door to the now. And in that moment, Haru felt that key in his hands. Not as a physical object, but as a state of mind, a commitment to life and to himself. As he gazed at the river, he realized that every moment is an invitation to release overthinking and surrender to action. The future, with all its uncertainties, is not an enemy, but a horizon unfolding step by step, without need for anxiety or mental blocks. The young monk closed his eyes and took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the crisp mountain air. Each inhalation reminded him that he was alive. Each exhalation invited him to let go of all that held him back. When he opened his eyes, he stood up and chose to continue walking. The path was not just a physical trail, but an inner journey toward the freedom of not overthinking, toward the wisdom of simply doing. And so, with the sound of the river as his backdrop, Haru resumed his walk, aware that true Zen mastery lies in acting without mental paralysis, in living each moment fully and freely. Haru walked on with a renewed sense of clarity. The uncertainty that had once gripped him was beginning to dissolve, like morning mist vanishing with the rising sun. Each step he took was filled with a quiet confidence, not born from external certainty, but from the direct experience of being present and choosing to act. As he walked, another of the master's core teachings returned to him. The mind is like a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, restless and never satisfied. Only when you become the observer, without being carried away, can you find the clarity to act without hesitation. That image of the restless monkey struck a deep chord in Haru. For years, he had let that monkey run the show, fueling anxiety and confusion with endless thoughts. But now he was beginning to see the power wasn't in trying to silence the mind, but in changing his relationship to it. Not being trapped, not identifying, just observing. In a small clearing, Haru sat on a stone and closed his eyes. He inhaled and exhaled slowly, letting the natural rhythm of his breath anchor his awareness in the present. He felt the mind tossing up thoughts, but he simply watched them without attaching, without reacting. It's simple, he thought. I don't need to solve everything right now. I just need to take the next step without overloading it with 1,000 imagined scenarios. The mountain no longer felt like an insurmountable obstacle, but a patient teacher, one that offered lessons in humility, in accepting what is, and in having the courage to move forward anyway. When he opened his eyes, Haru sensed that fear had lost much of its power, replaced by a deep stillness, a balance between action and acceptance. He was not alone on this path. Every living being that breathed the same air shared the same invitation to live without mental paralysis, to act with presence and without fear. With a light heart, he stood up and continued his climb, carrying within him the quiet wisdom that we don't need all the answers to begin walking. The Zen path is about doing, surrendering to the flow of the present moment, without letting the mind complicate what life so simply lays before us. The sun had begun to descend, painting the landscape in golden hues, when Haru reached a small clearing where an ancient oak stood, majestic and silent. He sat beneath its shade, feeling the quiet strength of a tree that, without hurry or effort, had endured the passing of years. In that still moment, the young monk reflected on life, and on the nature of fear that had so often paralyzed him. He realized that fear was not a real enemy, but a signal, a reminder that his mind was trying to protect him, even if, in doing so, it often held him back. He recalled a teaching from the master. When the mind tells you that you can't, remember the oak. It does not struggle, it simply is. And in that stillness, firm and patient, it becomes a symbol of true strength. Haru understood then that the strength to act doesn't come from violently overcoming fear, but from accepting it and moving forward anyway. True power lies in the simplicity of conscious action. He thought, too, of how society and his own upbringing had taught him to overanalyze every step, to seek guarantees, to fear mistakes. But life, as Zen revealed to him, is a constant flow, where both error and success are part of the same current. Just do it, he said to himself with quiet determination. Stop overthinking, because the only way to learn, to grow, and to truly live is through action. With that renewed conviction, Haru rose from the shade of the oak and continued his path toward the summit, knowing that whatever he might find ahead, He had already taken the most important step, to trust in action, and to let go of the mental noise that once held him back. At last, Haru reached the mountaintop, just as the sun began to sink behind the clouds, painting the sky in warm, gentle tones. He sat on a rock, letting the cool breeze caress his face, and gazed out at the vast landscape unfolding before him. In that moment, he realized that the true journey had not been the physical climb, but the inner path that led him to free himself from his own mind. The mountain had been only a mirror, reflecting his struggle with overthinking, his paralyzing fear, and his constant tendency to get stuck in his head. He remembered the master's words, now ringing crystal clear in his heart. Stop overthinking and just do it. They were no longer just words, but a lived truth, a mantra woven into every fiber of his being. Haru smiled with a deep sense of peace, because he now understood conscious action, the courage to move forward without waiting for certainty, is the path to freedom, and that every step, no matter how small, is an act of wisdom and bravery. The young monk closed his eyes, breathed in the pure mountaintop air, and made a quiet promise to himself to carry this teaching into his daily life, to remember that the mind can be either ally or enemy, depending on what he chooses to do with it. It's not about rejecting reflection or planning, but about refusing to let the mind become a maze that traps the soul. As he descended the mountain, Haru felt he was carrying an invaluable gift, the freedom to stop overthinking and simply act, because within conscious action lies the essence of Zen, and in doing, life itself.